Welcome back to XJ Garage, and shifting away from the Volvo a little bit, we have the car sitting right over there. If you're a repeat watcher, viewer of this channel, you will recognize that car as it has been in the background of a few other videos. I know I mentioned it around the time... Oh, what video is that? I mentioned it in the video where I explained why LS swaps are really rare here in Europe. Because then that car was sitting right there, only the other way around, and it wasn't registered yet. That car is my brother, also known as Metric Garage on YouTube. It's his 1981 Ford Taunus. Yes, Taunus, not Taurus. It's European, just like pretty much everything else here. Except maybe the Cougar. Can't see it. It's right there. Yeah, it is his Ford Taunus. And he has been complaining that it kind of overheats a little bit. A bit too much. Last time he drove it, I think he told me it overheated 5 times in 500 meters. So, you know, it overheats easily, he said. But I have tried. Sorry about that. My cold is still not completely over. I have tried today to get this thing to boil. I just can't do it. I redlined first, second, third, then into fourth, which brings me to a completely different problem. The transmission is about to die in first, second, and third, and reverse. But fourth, it's nice and quiet. It just sounds like a brick factory in first, second, and third. So I redlined it through all the gears, except fourth. I didn't want to drag fourth, but I couldn't get it to boil. And I had it sitting out here idling until it got nice and warm. It doesn't have a thermostat in it, which is helping that not boiling thing. But it got nice and toasty, a little bit toasty. It didn't get really warm, but it was operating temperature. And I went out and drove it for a little bit. Floored it pretty much all the time, bang shifted it, and it went from warm to cold. The heater even blew cold inside the car. So put it back here, took the radiator cap off. The water is really grotty. It's brown and has some deposits in it. But I then just backed it into the garage here and set about tearing that 1.6 Pinto engine out, because we went and bought a 2-liter, which is 30 more horsepower and 4 deciliters more, which is not a bad thing. 2 liters are always better than 1.6. So at this point, I have gotten everything off of the engine. We'll get some light on so you can see. We've gotten everything off the engine: alternator, starter, wiring, fan belt. Still have the timing belt on. That's brand new, along with the valve stem seals. So those are going to get swapped over onto the 2-liter. Engine is free from the transmission, it's free from the motor mounts, it's free from the exhaust. All the wiring, it's not much wiring, it's 3 to the starter. This connector here with 3 wires to the alternator, 2 to the coil, obviously the one for the points and the one on the center tower. 1 in the block for the oil pressure, and 1 on the head for temp. Also a wire that goes to, I'm guessing it's choke on the carburetor. But I got all that off. All the bolts out of the transmission. Like I said, engine mounts, alternator, starter, fan belt, hoses, you know, radiator's gone, heater's gone, fuel line up to the manual fuel pump is gone. Real sorry about coughing all the time. And yeah, like I said, all that's gone. The engine is ready to pull out. But I'm not going to do that right now because, well, I still want to try to heal myself a little bit. So yeah, this thing is on its way out. The 2-liter is coming in. This car, last time it had its inspection was in 1998, and my brother was born the year after. And this car was, well, the license plates were delivered into the Norwegian Public Road Administration, DMV, in 2001. It was then supposed to be in for its control in 2000, but it wasn't. And then it was plates were just delivered and the car was off the road. And it was off the road for, well, up until this spring, 2018, because this is, believe it or not, a one-owner car. Well, it was. An old guy had bought it new back in 1981. He'd probably died, and it had been sold from his estate in 2005. And then probably some kids have bought it because you can see the sanded down spots everywhere. It's down to, primer some places. It's bare metal rust some places. And then it was sitting. It was missing bumpers. The lights were out of it. It hadn't been on the road, like I said, since 2000 and possibly 2000, but it was deregistered in 2001. Tires were bad. We went down and picked it up the same day we sold my brother's Mini, and I drove it back up here. I overheated the crap out of it about half an hour away from here. Ended up at a gas station that had a bunch of old tires, sitting behind the station. And I ended up taking a small plastic container that was in the back of this car with parts in it. Put the parts into the seat, took that plastic container over to the tires and emptied the water out of those tires and poured it down the radiator and drove it back here. And then, we went through and did a few things. We replaced the cam because the cam was worn out. Did some fine-tuning, adjustment, new spark plugs, breaker points, valve stem oil seals, like I said, timing belt, tensioner, rebuilt the front brake calipers because those were dragging. Some new tires. We also replaced a few small things, but not anything big, And then we told him that if we get to drive this thing a little bit before you get it, it'll be in a much better state when you get it, because, it's an old car, it has been sitting for a long time, something's bound to break. And of course, he didn't listen to that, and he just came and got it, and a week or two later, the water pump was shot. So I luckily sent him my spare water pump for the Escort. I sent that with him because it's the same engine. It's 1.6 2 liter. It's still the Pinto engine, so everything fits over. So he went and took that, put it in, and, well, after that, it's just been boiling all the time. So now, we are tired of that, and we are pulling, like I said, the engine out. We have a new radiator here. The old radiator is still fine, so I'm going to take that and put it in my Escort. Speedo cable, because that broke. So we're going to put the speedo cable in. We have pretty much new clutch on that 2 liter. And a new heater cord, because the heater in this doesn't blow warm at all. We also brought a heater fan to help with heating. And a few other small things, nothing big. Accelerator cable also for the 2 liter, because it has a different carb. This thing has 1 barrel something. Probably a original Ford. Yeah, it's an original Ford carb. On the 2 liter, there's a Weber. So, we needed a few things to get that to fit, and like I said, went and bought all that. So now the engine in this thing is ready to come out. It's just, well, it is literally just push the car out, get something over it to attach the engine to, lift it out. Then put the 1.6 and 2 liter next to each other, pull the timing belt off, valve cover off to get the valve stem oil seals out, and place all that over onto the 2 liter, then dropping the 2 liter into here, attaching everything back up, pulling the 4-speed out, because we have a 5-speed that's going into this thing, and get all that installed. Then pretty much our job is done. Which is what's going to happen to this car later, and I might be back updating on it. I don't know. If that is something you would like to see, maybe more into details on how to swap over one of these engines, it is dead easy. I mean, I've been working here for maybe a couple of hours just getting everything off and inspecting everything I've been taking off to make sure everything's good. That's just been a few hours, and of course it is putting a Pinto into something that already has a Pinto, so it's no fabrication needed. It's just drop it in, essentially. Move parts over and drop it in. And there will be a video back on the Volvo pretty soon. The rust is now finished, more or less. There's a little bit underneath the floor needs to be taken. The rest is done. Then it's paint, reassembly, wash, polish, sell, pretty much. Get rid of it. Now I'm tired of having a Volvo in my shop. Well, yeah, that's it for this time. Like, comment, and subscribe. Look forward to seeing you later. Take care.